Hey, how's it going everyone? These are some of the films I watched in January that I felt strongly enough about to want to share my thoughts with you. First up is Terrifier 2. Damien Leone's Terrifier 2 is amazing and so much better than any other mainstream horror movie that's come out in years. Not only is he the writer and director, but he's also the head of visual effects, the editor, and he did the sound design himself. The fact that he's able to pull off such effective and detailed gore and world building is super impressive, including one of the rawest and most drawn-out kills I've seen in a popular horror film maybe ever. Him and his producer/investor, Phil Falcone, would just have to pause filming whenever a big kill came up, and then go in the basement and work on the molds and everything, and then call the cast back a couple weeks later when they could continue shooting. All the performances delivered from the rest of the cast were great, and it actually depicts the dynamics of a modern family in a realistic and believable way. I bought this on 4K exclusively at Best Buy, so go support this one if you can. Another thing I watched was Inside Man on Netflix. It's created by Steven Moffat, who was behind the incredible Sherlock series and the pretty good Dracula miniseries. Sadly, something about the show just always felt off to me. The atmosphere always felt flat, and the editing was just really odd and lacked tension. Everybody's acting was good, and the idea of Stanley Tucci's character having a sort of puzzle or riddle that you as the viewer can try to solve by the end of the episode is pretty cool. But the characters would do or say one clever thing and then make really weird choices right after. So it feels like the creators just didn't sit with this long enough to finally tune the story. Consequently, the writing and directing feel very rushed. Unfortunately, the most fascinating thing about the show is trying to describe and identify precisely why it wasn't as good as it could have been. Another thing I watched was the Fable 1 and 2 on Netflix. They are both directed by Kan Eguchi and are both just really fun martial art films. The stunts are super well done and have a very unique flavor to them. The comedy actually landed here for me most of the time, and all the characters are vibrant and interesting. It's similar to the Rurouni Kenshin films in the aspect that he doesn't actually kill anyone now, so all the deaths happen in flashbacks. With this being an action comedy film, this makes for some really funny moments where he has to restrain himself to not kill anyone. I really look forward to more films from this director and cast. I also watched The Pale Blue Eyes on Netflix. This was directed by Scott Cooper, and I've liked several of his previous films, so I was really looking forward to this. It's a story set in the 1800s about an investigator hired to solve murders at a local military academy, where a young Edgar Allan Poe attends. Unfortunately, it just wasn't for me. The first 40 minutes or so are interesting enough, but then it just didn't seem to go anywhere. The set design and acting are solid, but the dialogue and pacing just didn't draw me in. I think for a film like this, the score and atmosphere really has to hit, and I just didn't feel much overall. So, unfortunately, I think this one is pretty forgettable. Another thing I watched was Adaptation. I'm trying to make my way through all of Charlie Kaufman's films, and wow, I wish I'd seen this sooner. Just like everyone else, right after I watched it, I went online searching to see if Charlie Kaufman really has a twin brother. Kaufman is able to write about his own insecurities, flaws, and state of mind in such a brilliant way, and I would just love to see behind the scenes of his writing process. He gets so meta with the screenwriting techniques and what kinds of new things you can accomplish in that medium. It has probably my favorite performance from Nicolas Cage ever. His brother's eagerness to writing and his ignorance of the craft with just creating cliches and doing the exact opposite of what Kaufman advises is pretty funny. It seems extremely relevant to today, where creators will try to imagine experimental or original content, and yet the masses seem to gravitate to the same old bland tropes. This really is a masterclass for any aspiring screenwriters. I got the new physical 4K release off Amazon, and the quality was excellent. Another film I watched was Dragons Forever, directed by Sammo Hung and also starring Jackie Chan and Biao Yuen. Jackie and Sammo somehow always outdo themselves and continue to astound me every time I watch one of their old Hong Kong films. The choreography and stunts had me yelling with awe and excitement at how they pulled it off. How they move around the set pieces with unique parkour moves and creative combats is incredible to see. The story itself is good. It could have been a bit more fleshed out, but the main focus is the characters themselves, who are really captivating and fun to watch. I watched this from the new 4K transfer 88 films put out, and the sound and picture quality were both top-notch. I also saw The Vast of Night on Amazon Prime, directed by Andrew Patterson. It's set in the 1950s about a local radio show host and a young switchboard operator that investigate the sound of a strange frequency. This film really surprised me with how well written, directed, and acted it was. There are so many long takes with a ton of dialogue that feels so grounded and authentic. They don't drag on, but they pull you into the world. And it has some of the most impressive and mesmerizing camera work I've seen in a while. Maybe I'm just a sucker for those long drone/dolly shots, but I just never wanted them to end and I could watch them all day long. I'll definitely revisit this one for sure because the atmosphere and the characters are extraordinary. I also got around to seeing The Woodsman on Peacock TV, directed by Nicole Kassell. It's about a man who has pedophilia and is released from jail after 12 years, and now he tries to reintegrate himself back into society. Definitely my favorite performance from Kevin Bacon, because this is really difficult subject matter to explore. It's intriguing how the undertones and context of innocent shots of children can be so uncomfortable and menacing when coming from a film like this. I would have liked to see the film be a bit longer because the characters were so interesting and I wanted to see more of their lives. I think films like this are important to understanding and contemplating these types of paraphilic disorders, and this was a great intellectual stimulation on the subject. Next, I watched Copenhagen Cowboy on Netflix, directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. The easiest way to describe it is it's about a young woman who navigates her way through the criminal underworld in Denmark. It has the classic NWR neon lighting schemes and long shots without any dialogue and cool synth music, and a whole lot of 360 panning shots. Visually, it looks incredible, and every frame stands out and looks gorgeous. The music pairs together so well with his directing and editing style, and it can make for some really captivating sequences. Other than that, I really wasn't invested in the story or the characters at all. I don't mind a lack of dialogue and can enjoy that aspect when there's something to gravitate towards. It just seems like an extended short film where the director just wants to flex his directing talent but doesn't create a world that you can be invested in. Up next, I watched The Wild Boys, directed by Bertrand Mandico. It's about 5 juvenile delinquent boys who have to board a ship with the stern captain as punishment for their crimes. The thing is, all the boys are actually played by female actors. They do a good job in their mannerisms and performances, and the fact that they are all played by women plays into the plot in a way that otherwise wouldn't have worked. Depending on your social political leanings, I think there are several ways to take the messages of this film about gender. But for me, I just thought the story was cool and I liked it. I picked this up on Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome. Last up is both Lux Aeterna and Vortex, directed by Gaspar Noé. Lux Aeterna is only about 50 minutes long, and it's really well done considering Noé shot this in only 5 days, 2 months right before the Cannes Film Festival. His ability to show so much organized havoc and chaos in his films is great, and it's on full display here. All the strobing and lighting effects and title cards he has makes it feel so different from anything else out there, and it's mesmerizing. Vortex is about an elderly couple living in their last years, while the wife has dementia and the husband is trying to write a book. I don't like when others always say this in their critiques, but the film is definitely a lot longer than it needed to be. It was very slow, like slower than a Tarkovsky film slow, and it being confined to their flat for most of the film makes it so you can't have really captivating cinematography. The story was very good though, and the split screen concept really worked for me. I just didn't find myself engrossed in the characters. On a random personal note, I actually have a grandmother who has early stages of dementia due to a kidney disease and lives with her husband in a sort of similar way to this. So I saw this at a very interesting point in my life, and it's not like I couldn't find a personal connection to the film yet. Even though I didn't love it, I still think it's a special film, and I'm glad others got more out of it than I did. These are most of the films that I watched this month. Follow me on Letterboxd if you want to see a full list, and let me know if you've seen these movies and what you thought of them. Thanks for watching.